I was born and bred in Shetland. I'm a half English Shetlander, right? And so I suppose there's a bit of everything in there.
I grew up as a forces child, and I was always British. But really now I feel very Shetland. And, I would probably say I was Shetland before I'm British.
I live on Unst, which is the most northerly island in the UK. I was born in Scotland, English father. I actually went to school in Denmark, so I would identify as European and British and Scottish.
I have an English dad, I was born in England, I have a Scottish mum, and I live in Shetland. So lots of my family live in England, and I lived in England. But I definitely enjoy and am proud of living in Shetland and Scotland.
I've always identified myself as Scottish, British and Orcadian, and a little bit of European as well, mainly around the Ryder Cup time.
I have multiple identities. I have identities as a Scot, as a Highlander, as an Islander, as a British person, as a European. But that's only part of what defines me. What defines me in my political life is what I believe, the ideas that I promote.
I wake up every morning. I look out the window. I'm looking out at a vista not unlike this, close to the sea, and I think, bloody hell, I live here. People pay money to come here on holiday, and I live here. I'm so privileged. But until you understand this society, how it works, you can never understand Shetland. And I'm only scratching the surface of that, but having a Shetland partner has been just instrumental in making these the best years of my life.
I want an independent Scotland that's a member of the EU or has a close relationship with the European Union.
I think it's absolutely crucial that the UK leaves the EU as a whole.
The best future for Shetland, if Scotland became independent, would be autonomy for Shetland.
I'm after Shetland's and Orkney's independence. They are actually already independent, but nobody wants us to know about it.
To live in Shetland and Unst, there's a very clear sense of community, and I think that's the thing that kind of strives above everything else.
The small schools are, I think, very vital in creating this feeling of community we have in Shetland. The school, for example, is probably just in shot there, down there, is a small, currently one teacher school. We expect it to be 2 teachers next year, but that's teaching P1 to P7. So, and all those kids are in the same class together, and they're taught to look after each other. The older kids look after the younger ones.
I think there's nowhere like here, and it's such a conversation starter because people are so intrigued as to what Shetland is actually like. And they've got go-to assumptions, that Shetland ponies are pretty famous, for example. So this is one of the things that's always mentioned, with the ponies. In reality, of course, Shetland's culture, its heritage, its dialect, its musical tradition is really incredible. It's vibrant and it is incredibly unique. And I think Orkney and Shetland do have a heritage that's very connected to parts of Scandinavia that's, it's got a stronger connection than other parts of Scotland. And I think that, that is important to people here. It's something that's celebrated here is our Scandinavian kind of connections and our Scandinavian link.
You don't have to be here very long before you realise that the history is so close to the surface. It's almost palpable. And every Shetlander has had it passed down in their family that Shetland is not part of Scotland. And yet, everybody just accepts it as that's the presumption, that's how it is. Well, we can't do anything about it. Just get on with it.
I think his historic and legal analysis is wrong. I think that Shetland is very much part of the United Kingdom, having historically been part of Scotland before we joined the United Kingdom.
As soon as I realised that the deception that had been exercised by Scotland and the UK, then I started to think, well, we need to do something about this. There's something absolutely not right here. Wow. A friend of mine bought a house and his croft had this island with it. And he gave me the island. So I took Forvik as a piece of Shetland, a Shetland in microcosm, that whatever I could do over there, anyone here in Shetland could do the same thing. There's very few days you can actually get across here, just because of the weather. Just too dangerous. Raise that Viking blood and go ahead and take back control of what is already ours.
Well, Peliar is a festival that's held all across Shetland in the winter. We build a galley, a replica Viking ship, and we get dressed up in costumes and parade with the torches and burn the galley, and then there's a weekend of celebrating that goes along with that. So in 2016 I was elected to be the Chief Viking, the Geyser Jarl as we call it, for North Maven, which was a massive honour for me, being obviously not native to Shetland.
I am sovereign because I own Forvik. That's what scares the authorities stiff, is that there is that sovereignty here innate. I will admit. Well, this is my windbreak, as you can see, wind broken. I've planted some trees here. Some survive, some don't. These are willows, and there's a rose here. They're just spreading out flat because they can't put their heads up.
I first came to Shetland in the late 80s. It's because my parents moved up here and I was working offshore. I came to see my parents and stayed. I ended up married to a local lass, and here we still are. And we both take part in the Shetland lifestyle. We have the crofts, we run the sheep. And I've just always been accepted as part of the community. I'm the chair of an organisation called We're Shetland. The goal of We're Shetland is really to obtain some kind of autonomy for Shetland, and more than just a few powers doled out by Holyrood or Westminster. We want our own government to be able to decide our own future. We believe that rules made in London, politicians sitting in London can't possibly understand this. There are various models that have been proposed. The one that we believe is probably the best option, the easiest option to achieve, would be becoming very similar to British Overseas Territories, having our own government, but retaining a link with the rest of the UK.
I think there's a fundamental difficulty here, that because there are small populations, this island is 600, Shetland as a whole is 22,000, and so we don't have enough work for specialists. So, for example, there's no paediatrician in Shetland, which means that there's no paediatrician for several hundred miles.
There are lots of promises made about excellent Wi-Fi for all of Britain in a certain amount of time, and it just never happens. and it probably won't happen.
We're always statistically insignificant. You know, if the aim is to get 95% coverage of something, it doesn't matter whether Shetland is covered or not. If it's to get 95% coverage in Shetland, it doesn't matter if Unst is covered or not.
We're as far as you can get from Westminster, but I think as long as politicians and representatives listen to us and are aware and acknowledge the difficulties and the differences of living in such a remote place, then I think it's fine.
Yeah, and I think there's something about austerity. It is more expensive to keep populations here. It's in the nature of it. And so when people are counting every penny, then, you know, it's easy to point at populations that are more expensive. One of the options that's been discussed is autonomy for Shetland, which is somewhere between independence and being just another kind of county in Scotland. And I quite like that idea because it shows that the islands are different, and yet it doesn't go to all the kind of expense and sort of unnecessary change that full independence would bring.
People do get frustrated at feeling that their voice or their community's voice is not being heard, and that does sometimes give a rise to identity politics. That does allow people to think, well, if only we could do this for ourselves, we wouldn't have to bother with other people, we wouldn't have to accommodate their views.
It's not a question of identity. You know, I mean, I'm half English myself. It's not going to change the way I feel about my family south of the border at all. It's about what kind of society you want to live in, what kind of government you want to be ruled by.
We are considered the property of the state. And this is very much about saying, I want to turn my back on all of that. I'm not the property of the state. I am my own property. We live in a world of abundance, but that abundance has been cornered by a very few, and they have conned us into thinking that we actually live in a world of scarcity and we need to suffer austerity in order to keep lining their pockets. Right, this is a small piece of Shetland. It's like Shetland in microcosm. And the reason for putting up this flag is because it shows that it's not the same as the mainland, in the sense that the mainland still thinks it's part of the UK. We don't think we're part of the UK. The Viking blood is how those original landowners saw themselves. They saw themselves as completely sovereign, completely without lord or superior. For whatever reason, anarchy has been painted with the brush of violence and disruption. All it means is that there is no monarch. Anarchy. Anarchy. I would prefer to think of it in a slightly different way, and I would coin the word omnarchy, so that everybody is sovereign. That means that everybody is on the same level, and it means that everybody has to take responsibility. This is the key thing. You can't just go about wantonly destroying things.
People here do not believe that they want to be an independent sovereign nation as they are described by Stuart Hill. But secondly, this is a time actually that we should be rubbing out lines on the map. We shouldn't be drawing in more of them, wherever it is that you actually want to draw that line.
I'm trying to describe something that has never been done before, and I have absolutely no idea exactly how it can work, but it seems to me that is a logical kind of process. It's offering something that's so attractive and offering something that people think they've already got, but in fact no, they haven't.
We would love to be in a position where we could back Stuart. We'd love to, but we don't have the details. We don't have the details sorted out yet. You don't gain independence overnight. It's a process that has to be followed through
If you come from a community like this, you want there to be certain decisions that you make locally, but full independence or anything like that is probably unlikely and unwanted. And I think it's absolutely crucial that the UK leaves the EU as a whole.
I'm in favour of European Union membership. I think it's brought diversity, I think it's brought open-mindedness, I think it's brought internationalisation. The length and breadth of Britain, but certainly Shetland and Orkney being part of that. I want an independent Scotland that's a member of the EU or has a close relationship with the European Union.
It is now my job to get out there and make people fully aware of the injustice that's been going on. The potential of what happens here is unprecedented. This has the potential to alter the whole world. And that might sound crazy, but it's absolutely what I believe.